Beneath the northern sky, the hearts that stayed. Prologue. The town of Edson, Alberta, nestled against the relentless majesty of the Rockies, had always been more than a dot on a map. It was a living, breathing memoir of countless seasons. Its streets were paved with memories and its skies bore the imprint of myriad dreams. On cold, starlit nights, the wind would slither through narrow alleyways, carrying with it echoes of laughter long past and the quiet murmur of promises made in youthful wonder. The centerpiece of this quiet portrait was the family inn, a venerable structure of timber and stone that had sheltered generations of dreamers and wanderers alike. Within its time-worn walls, every creaking board and flickering lamp spoke of moments suspended in time. Families had broken bread here, lovers had shared whispered secrets, and even the lonely had found solace in its gentle embrace. Margot, the stoic yet loving matriarch, had devoted her life to tending both the inn and its legacy. She believed the inn was not just a building but a repository of every smile and tear shed on its floors, a sacred space where hearts could mend. As the northern lights sometimes danced in silent benediction above, the inn seemed to promise that no matter how far one strayed, there was always a warm hearth waiting to guide them home. This long-held legacy set the stage for what was to come, a convergence of broken souls and hopeful hearts. Among them was Aurora Leclaire, whose departure from Edson once seemed definitive but whose inner call, like the persistent murmur of a forgotten lullaby, led her back. And waiting in that sacred space was Ethan Ward, whose art in solitude marked him as a man shaped by love and loss. Together, their intertwined journeys would soon illuminate the hidden corners of Edson and forge a future that honored the bittersweet past. Every footstep on the faded carpet of the inn, every rustle of autumn leaves outside, carried the promise that healing was not only possible but destined to blossom anew. Chapter 1: The Return. Aurora Leclaire's journey back to Edson was one marked by a slow, contemplative return to the land that had once nurtured her dreams. The bus ride through winding country roads was a trip down memory lane, a montage of recollections that flooded her mind with both warmth and regret. As the horizon unfurled into an endless tapestry of amber fields and evergreen silhouettes, Aurora's heart began to throb with the familiar cadence of homecoming. Every passing mile seemed to stitch together the fragments of a life once suspended between ambition and belonging. Stepping off the bus, Aurora paused to absorb the gentle chill in the air and the muted hum of a town that had not entirely forgotten her. The once familiar storefronts and weathered paths evoked images of a childhood long past. Afternoons spent chasing fireflies, secret rendezvous under sprawling pines, and whispered promises beneath starlit skies. She was not the wide-eyed girl who'd once roamed these streets, and yet, amid the inevitable changes, something constant pulsed, a quiet reminder that no matter how far life pulled her away, Edson would always be the cradle of her heart. Returning to the family inn was like entering a sacred space where every brushstroke of time was visible on familiar wallpaper and time-worn furniture. Margot, though older and grayer, greeted her with a mixture of relief and unspoken reproach. Their conversation, laden with unsaid words, revolved around the dual themes of regret and hopeful expectation. Over cups of steaming tea in the old kitchen, where the scent of pine and freshly baked bread mingled with memories, Margot confessed her constant worry. Not that Aurora had left, but that she had been too far away to sense the deep roots anchoring her to this land. Aurora, in turn, bared her soul about the fractured illusions of the city, the relentless demands, the shallow connections, the loss of her colorful inner world in the sterile corridors of corporate ambition. Later that evening, while wandering the shadowed corridors of the inn, Aurora's footsteps echoed softly against the creaking wooden floors. In a quiet alcove lined with faded photographs and handwritten letters, she traced the outlines of a family history that was as complex as it was comforting. Each picture whispered stories of celebrations, farewells, and quiet weekends spent under measured sunlight. In a moment of intimate reckoning, she vowed that this return would not merely be an escape from the chaos of modern life, but a deliberate pilgrimage toward rediscovering the person she once was, the vibrant soul that had longed for connection, simplicity, and unwavering authenticity. Chapter 2: Fateful Encounters. While Aurora was reacclimating to the familiar rhythms of Edson, destiny was quietly at work in unexpected corners of the town. Ethan Ward, a man whose very hands sculpted nature's raw canvas into art, often roamed the wooded pathways and rocky outcroppings of his beloved hometown. Born into a legacy of craftsmanship, Ethan was not merely an artisan. He was a quiet observer of life's intricate details. Every knot in a piece of cedar, every subtle imperfection whispered a secret waiting to be transformed into beauty. But beyond the tactile poetry of wood, there lay a heart bruised by irrevocable loss, a child of sorrow who had, at one point, believed that love was destined only to bring pain. Ethan's earliest memory was that of his grandfather's workshop, a place imbued with the dust of countless sawed logs and the heady aroma of freshly cut timber. His grandfather, a stoic man with tender eyes, taught him that every piece of wood had a story, much like every person had a hidden history. Yet as Ethan grew older, the memory of his first and only true love, Maren Ellis, cast a long shadow over his work. Maren's passing had rendered him a recluse of sorts, channeling his grief into delicate carvings that resonated with the melancholy of lost time. It was during one crisp autumn afternoon that fate brought Aurora and Ethan together for the first time. In the warm embrace of the wildflower and pine, a quaint cafe owned by Lena Carter, a woman as outspoken as she was nurturing, the two strangers found themselves seated at opposite corners of the same rustic table. Aurora was sifting through memories in an old journal when her gaze lifted to meet Ethan's. A silent spark passed between them, gentle and fleeting, yet laden with unspoken promises. In that suspended moment, the weight of past sorrows and tentative hope mingled, fabricating a delicate bridge between two such otherwise solitary souls. The first conversation was tentative, built on the trappings of small-town pleasantries. The crispness of the autumn air, the bittersweet tang of freshly brewed coffee, and the unassuming beauty of Edson's time-worn streets. But as the conversation deepened, the veneer of polite pleasantries gave way to vulnerable stories. Aurora recounted the bitterness of urban isolation, the sterile boardrooms, the relentless clamor of ambition, and the hollow echoes in her soul that urged her to flee back to what was truly real. Ethan, in his measured tone, offered fragments of his journey, the solace found in the strokes of a chisel, the haunting beauty of every crafted piece that testified to his silent grief, and the small, persistent hope that the heart can mend even after its fiercest blow. From that afternoon onward, their paths repeatedly intertwined. Brief meetings at the local market, shared walks beneath the kaleidoscopic canopy of fall, and lingering moments at the cafe built a quiet intimacy. Every encounter was like a piece of a tender puzzle slowly forming a picture of mutual healing. The townsfolk started to whisper that two souls, both scarred yet courageous, were rediscovering the art of living, finding beauty in imperfection and solace in the simple act of being. The air of Edson, heavy with the scent of fallen leaves and the promise of winter snow, became the silent witness to these burgeoning connections. Chapter 3: Echoes of Memory. In the days that followed their first meeting, Aurora found herself drawn to the quiet corners of the inn, where memories roamed freely among dust-laden books and old, forgotten letters. The library, a room steeped in the aroma of aged paper and subtle hints of lavender, became her refuge. There, between the worn bindings of family histories and the gentle creaks of floorboards, she began to piece together the mosaic of the past. The books, with their whispered secrets and unspoken truths, almost seemed to recognize her yearning soul. Each page was a fragment of a collective memory that bridged the chasm between what once was and what could be anew. Concurrently, Ethan sought to confront the ghosts that had haunted him for so long. He returned time and time again to the old bench in the park, the very bench where he had once shared dreams with Maren. Seated there on a rain-soaked afternoon, with the world blurred into watercolors of grief and hope, he spoke softly to the empty space beside him. "Maren," he murmured, "you taught me that love leaves an indelible mark. You may be gone, but in every groove of the wood I shape, every curve I smooth, I feel your presence." It was a ritual of remembrance, a painful yet cathartic admission that her absence had forever altered the script of his life. During these introspective moments, Caleb Rowan, the loyal friend and philosophical mechanic, would often join Ethan. With grease-stained hands and a heart full of quiet wisdom, Caleb listened as Ethan's voice trembled with both sorrow and fragile hope. Their conversations, deep and meandering like the nearby river after a fresh snowfall, became a moving dialogue about the nature of love, loss, and the possibility of moving beyond grief. Caleb's gentle teasing and steadfast companionship reminded Ethan that love might be eternal, but the heart also possessed the remarkable capacity to renew itself in the face of life's harshest winters. Meanwhile, Aurora's reconnection with her past was steeped in moments of both solace and revelation. In whispered conversations with Lena Carter at the cafe, she recounted the city's unforgiving pace and the hollowness that had replaced her once fiery ambitions. Lena, whose own life had taken a winding path of sacrifice and stubborn hope, challenged Aurora to see beauty in the scars that marked her journey. Their dialogue, part catharsis and part celebration, paved the way for a renewed understanding of what it meant to love, both oneself and another, with a fierce honesty that defied the superficial gloss of modern life. In this quiet unfolding, Edson itself seemed to embrace their stories. The autumn landscape, painted in hues of amber and rust, and the soft patter of rain on the inn's old roof became metaphors for cleansing and rebirth. Aurora began to see her mistakes and disappointments not as tragic failures but as necessary brushstrokes on the canvas of her identity, and Ethan, carving delicate patterns into the veneer of reclaimed wood, discovered that the art of creation went hand in hand with the art of release, each cut liberating him a little more from the chains of the past. Chapter 4. The Midsummer Bonfire. As summer crept over Edson with a languid, golden warmth, the entire town found itself preparing for the annual midsummer bonfire, a tradition as old as the inn itself. This night was a veritable tapestry of communal celebration, where every resident, from the oldest elder to the most recent arrival, gathered under a velvet sky punctuated by 1,000 silver stars. The bonfire became more than just a spectacle of crackling flames and dancing sparks. It was a ritual of forgiveness, remembrance, and the rekindling of hope that transcended generational boundaries. That midsummer evening, the inn's grounds were transformed into an enchanted clearing. Lanterns hung from ancient trees, casting gentle glows on the weathered faces of those gathered. The smell of pine, mingling with the effervescence of wildflowers and the smoky promise of the rising fire, set the stage for an unforgettable night. Aurora, dressed in a flowing gown the color of twilight, felt her heart swell with anticipation. Tonight, everything would be momentarily set aside. The regrets, the scars, and the long-held secrets, in favor of shared humanity and luminous renewal. In a quiet corner, Margot and Aurora found themselves alone, sitting on a time-worn bench near the fire's glow. The bonfire's flames danced in their eyes as Margot recounted stories of her own youth, a time of boundless passion, daring dreams, and inevitable heartache. "I've spent years believing that protecting you meant keeping you close, even if it meant holding you back," Margot whispered. In those minutes, as the boundaries of their past unraveled, Aurora realized that her mother's fierce love was not a prison but a guardianship, a promise that she would always have a sanctuary to return to, no matter how far her journey took her. Not far off, Ethan sat side by side with Caleb on a rugged log raised just enough to share a clear view of the blazing bonfire. The night air buzzed with laughter, and the distant strains of a folk tune stirred silent memories within Ethan's chest. As Caleb teased him gently about his newfound spark, a spark ignited by a girl from the city who dared question his solitude, Ethan's voice dropped to a near whisper. "I've clung to my memories like shards of glass, afraid that letting them go would mean erasing the love I once knew. But tonight I see the light in your eyes and I wonder if maybe I can let in a little more warmth again." The words, vulnerable and raw, hung between them as a testament to the possibility of healing even the deepest wounds. The bonfire also provided a stage for unexpected reunions. Lena, whose life had been punctuated by both abandonments and rediscoveries, orchestrated small clusters of conversation that ebbed and flowed like the tide. It was here that Benji Ortega's presence grew luminous, an artist capturing the collective heartbeat of the town on a portable canvas. He unveiled a mural, a breathtaking splash of color that portrayed a crescent moon cradling a delicate heart, directly on one of the inn's ancient walls. The mural, imbued with tender symbolism, spurred quiet discussions on art and renewal. Its imagery became a silent but potent reminder that even in decay, beauty could emerge. That night, as midnight drew near and the last of the bonfire's embers glowed like distant stars on the grass, every laugh and every tear shared beneath the sprawling sky felt like the delicate stitching of a communal quilt. Here, amid shared memories and tentative promises, the people of Etzen learned anew that every glowing ember was not merely the end of a flame, but the precursor to a dawn charged with possibility. The midsummer bonfire was not just a nightly ritual. The interplay of light and shadow wove a narrative of togetherness that would echo through the seasons to come. Chapter 5: Tempests at the Inn. As winter's advance began to sap the lingering warmth of autumn, tensions that had quietly been building found themselves erupting within the familiar walls of the inn. The renewed closeness between Aurora and Margot, though tender, had not entirely smoothed over years of unspoken dissatisfaction and clashing visions for the future. Aurora's passion for modernization and subtle rebellion against outdated traditions often collided with Margot's steadfast commitment to preserving the sanctity of the family legacy. Inside the grand yet aging lobby of the inn, old photographs and heirlooms watched as heated discussions took shape. In a particularly intense exchange one stormy evening, Aurora's voice, soft yet determined, reverberated against the ancient woodwork. "I am not erasing our past, I am reinterpreting it," she insisted, her eyes shining with both defiance and tender hurt. Margot's reply, quiet and laden with grief over lost opportunities, was a plea. "Your vision feels like a betrayal of everything you once knew." The clash between them was as much about preservation of memory as it was about the transformation of identity, a struggle that for both was deeply personal. Outside, the weather mirrored the internal turmoil. Wind howled through the eaves like a chorus of dissent, rattling window panes and scattering the dried leaves that had gathered in the courtyard. Meanwhile, Ethan, already grappling with the shadows of his own past, found himself haunted anew by the sudden reappearance of someone he once had hoped to forget, a figure from the outskirts of his previous life whose memory stung like a chill wind. The unexpected encounter stirred a torrent of emotions, forcing him to confront the raw interplay between what had been lost and what might still be salvaged. In a vulnerable moment after the confrontation, Ethan slipped away to the quiet solace of the courtyard. There, amidst the relentless patter of rain and the mournful cry of the wind, he found Caleb waiting. The mechanic's eyes, reflecting both empathy and unyielding support, met Ethan's troubled gaze. "Storms, no matter how fierce, eventually pass," Caleb assured him, placing a comforting hand on his friend's shoulder. That single act of reassurance, so simple and yet so potent, underscored the power of shared pain and mutual redemption. Back inside the inn, as tension simmered in hushed corridors and quiet apologies began to thaw the frozen anger of a long winter, disparate voices tried to mend the fragmented mosaic of family and community. Aurora, after spending a long tear-filled night poring over old letters and photos with Lena by her side, realized that each burst of anger was also a seed for understanding. In the early hours, with the first glimmers of hope peeking through heavy drapes, she reached out to Margot with an olive branch, a promise that change and continuity could coexist, as long as hearts were willing to listen. This tempest of emotions, as fierce as it was inevitable, marked a turning point. Like the tumultuous winds outside that slowly gave way to a fragile calm, the inn and its inhabitants were learning that even in the deepest upheaval, the promise of renewal lingered on the horizon. The storm within the walls was both a trial and an invitation to shed old grievances and rebuild from the ruins a future that honored the past without being imprisoned by it. Chapter 6: The Art of Letting Go. Winter, with its stark beauty and relentless bite, became the crucible in which many of Etzen's hearts were remade. For Aurora, the season was a time for solitary walks along snow-dusted paths and introspective moments in the quiet solitude of the inn's library. Each step on the frozen ground, every inhale of the crisp, chill air, was a meditation on the impermanence of pain and the possibility of starting over. In the stillness of early mornings, as frost glistened on ancient window panes, she began to see that letting go was not a weakness but an act of profound courage, a willingness to welcome the new even as the echoes of the old reverberated softly in the background. During this time of introspection, Lena became both confidant and catalyst. Over countless cups of steaming herbal tea and long, meandering conversations that spilled into early afternoon, Lena revealed her own journey of reconciling past betrayals and shattered dreams. "We are each a patchwork of moments," she would say, her voice gentle yet laced with the wisdom of well-worn experience. "Every scar holds its lesson, every tear its own kind of beauty." Together, they combed through the pages of old journals and faded photographs, piecing together a narrative that celebrated both loss and hope. Their creative collaboration even led to a small exhibit at the Wildflower and Pine, where shared memories were showcased through art and storytelling, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. For Ethan, the path to recovery was equally steeped in the rituals of remembrance and release. In a scene of quiet poignancy, he returned to the bench that once cradled the memories of Maren. There, in the pale light of mid-afternoon, he set out remnants of his past, a bundle of old love letters, a faded scarf, symbols of a love that had once been all-consuming. Speaking softly to the air as if Maren herself could hear him, he confessed, "Your love carved me into the person I am, and though it hurts, I can now see that holding on is only a chain." Caleb, ever the silent anchor, joined him then, their shared silence speaking volumes about the delicate balance between honoring memory and embracing the gift of a future untethered by regret. Then there was Benji Ortega, whose vibrant mural, etched onto the inn's weathered exterior, became a daily manifestation of this delicate dance between remembrance and rebirth. Every brushstroke on that mural, a crescent moon cradling a tender heart, was both a tribute to what had been and a promise of what might be. Aurora, often pausing in her morning routine just to gaze at it, felt a stirring of creativity and a reminder that every ending was merely a threshold to new beginnings. This silent, visual hymn captivated every resident who passed by, igniting conversations not only about art, but about the very nature of healing. As winter's grip slowly loosened, each of these acts of personal release, whether it be through whispered conversations, quiet moments of solitude, or collaborative gestures of artistic expression, wove together into a grand, quiet anthem of letting go. The inn, with its walls steeped in memories of both sorrow and celebration, became a living canvas upon which every resident of Edson painted their own story of transformation, a testament to the belief that love, in all its painful beauty, had the power to liberate and restore. Chapter 7: Renewal at Dawn. With the caress of early spring, as vibrant blossoms began to reclaim the once frozen landscape, Edson stirred with the promise of renewal. The transformation was visible not only in nature but in the very souls of its inhabitants. The inn, painstakingly restored and suffused with newfound energy, stood as a beacon for what was possible when past and present converged in harmonious embrace. Aurora and Margot, having weathered the tempests of their own hearts, emerged from winter with a shared vision, a future that treasured tradition yet welcomed innovation. One luminous morning, as the first gold-tinted rays broke through the lingering chill, Aurora found herself standing on the balcony of the inn. From her vantage point, the awakening landscape stretched unblemished before her. Fields sprinkled with dew, trees budding with tentative greenery, and distant mountains softened by the gentle haze of early light. It was a scene that beckoned both introspection and joy. In that very moment, she felt the stirring of hope, a promise that the future could carry the legacy of yesterday in every tender detail. Ethan, too, was undergoing his own metamorphosis. In the quiet hours of dawn, often before the rest of the town had stirred, he would take up his tools and return to his humble workshop nestled among ancient pines. There, the rhythmic sound of his chisel against wood became a meditation, a cadence that matched the beating of his heart, as he poured all that he had learned from grief into creating something entirely new. One unforgettable morning, he emerged from his workshop carrying a freshly carved piece that combined the raw beauty of nature with the softness of human emotion. Later, as fate would have it, Aurora and Ethan met on a scenic overlook, where the rising sun crowned the world in a tender luminescence. "I've learned that love is not about erasing the past," Ethan whispered, his eyes reflecting the soft radiance of the dawn. "It's about weaving every scar, every memory, into the magnificent tapestry of who we become." His words resonated deeply within her as if they held the secrets of both sorrow and liberation. As the day unfolded, the renewed spirit of Edson manifested in countless small, yet profound moments. Caleb and Lena, whose own journeys of growth had been quietly unfolding over the past months, joined Aurora and Ethan for a shared breakfast in the inn's sunlit dining hall. Their conversation meandered from humorous recollections of winter mishaps to earnest discussions about the nature of beginnings. Their voices intertwined with laughter and hopeful banter, collectively celebrating the quiet miracle of second chances. Even Benji's mural, bathed in soft morning light, shimmered as a reminder that from ruins could arise the most vibrant expressions of life. It was a day of steady, determined renewal, a day marked by both introspective solitude and the vibrant chorus of community. In this new dawn, every shadow that once loomed large seemed to dissolve under the gentle beams of hope. Aurora understood at last that her journey was not just about returning to a place, but reclaiming the parts of herself that had been left behind. Ethan realized that his art, mirroring the complexities of his soul, was now a language of connection rather than solitude. And as Edson awakened to yet another sunrise, every heart in the town, whether scarred by loss or buoyed by love, resonated with the unmistakable truth that renewal was not a destination, it was a continuous, evolving promise. Epilogue. Years later, under an expansive sky studded with countless stars, the inn had evolved into more than a relic of memory. It had become a living testament to the power of human resilience and the transformative nature of love. Aurora and Ethan's relationship, forged in the fires of grief, hope, and reconciliation, blossomed over decades into a quiet, unwavering partnership. Their love, tender and profound, was a gentle reminder that every heartbeat, every whispered apology, and every shared dream contributed to the vast tapestry of life. Margot, whose once guarded heart had learned the subtle art of letting go, now watched Aurora lead the inn into a future that celebrated both progress and remembrance. Her eyes, streaked with silver and wet with reminiscence, shone with the satisfaction of knowing that even the deepest wounds of the past could be mended through empathy and understanding. Caleb continued to be a stalwart friend, not just to Ethan but to everyone whose life his quiet wisdom touched. With every joke, every moment of reflection shared under starlit skies, his steady presence underscored the power of loyalty and laughter. Lena's Cafe, the Wildflower and Pine, remained a cherished haven where the community gathered to stitch new memories into the old fabric of their lives. It was there that many painful stories were transformed into celebrations of endurance, as over countless cups of tea, new friendships blossomed and old fractures healed. Benji, the ever-vibrant artist, continued to leave his mark on the world with creations that invited others to see beauty in the imperfect and the transient. His mural, which had once symbolized hope emerging from ruin, now served as a perennial reminder that art and life was a series of ever-evolving chapters, each one as vital as the last. And in the quiet moments, when the world paused to listen to the wind rustling through the pines or the gentle crackle of a distant fire, one could almost hear the soft echo of Marin's laughter, a lingering presence that had helped shape both loss and redemption. Under the boundless, eternal canopy of the northern sky, every heart in Edson found its voice, its story intermingling with the timeless rhythm of nature, of love reborn and promise renewed. For Aurora and Ethan, every new sunrise was a reaffirmation of their silent vow, a promise that their legacy, marked by mistakes and triumphs alike, would live on in the memories of those who believed in the beauty of their shared humanity. In that legacy, the inn, the town, and each individual life were intricately woven together into a tapestry that would forever shine like starlight across the vast, unending sky.